Alex Clayton stood outside the rundown building as rain battered the city streets. The sign above the door read Barrett Solutions, its faded letters barely visible through the haze. This wasn't where he expected to end up, but desperation had driven him here. Lauren, his wife, was unfaithful, and Alex couldn't live with the gnawing suspicion anymore. The ad he'd seen online promised help in resolving personal matters discreetly. He had no idea what that meant, but today he was about to find out. The receptionist, a sharp-eyed woman with an air of efficiency, waved him in after barely glancing at him. Inside, the office was stark and cold, with black leather furniture and walls lined with filing cabinets. At the center of the room sat John Barrett, a man with piercing gray eyes that seemed to look right through Alex. His salt and pepper hair and confident demeanor exuded authority. "Mr. Clayton, I presume?" Barrett's voice was calm and deliberate as he gestured for Alex to sit. "Yeah," Alex muttered, his voice catching. "I'm here because I think my wife's cheating on me." Barrett nodded, leaning back in his chair. "Go on." Alex explained everything. Lauren's distant behavior, her sudden late-night outings, the unexplained phone calls she always took in another room. He mentioned Mike, a man whose name had surfaced recently in her conversations. His voice cracked with a mix of rage and heartbreak as he described how his marriage was falling apart. When Alex finished, Barrett regarded him for a long moment before standing. He retrieved a file from a locked cabinet and placed it on the desk. "Mr. Clayton," Barrett began, his tone unflinching, "you're not here for assumptions. You're here for proof." Alex hesitated before opening the file. Inside were photographs, Lauren and Mike in a car, holding hands in a dimly lit cafe, and laughing together as though they didn't have a care in the world. Alex's stomach churned. "This is from the past 3 weeks, Barrett continued. "We've been monitoring her since you reached out." "But I didn't reach out until 3 days ago," Alex said, his brow furrowing. Barrett's lips curled into a faint smile. "That's correct. Someone else hired us to investigate your wife before you contacted me." "Who?" Alex asked, his voice trembling. "I can't disclose that without their permission," Barrett said. "But it's clear you're not the only one affected by this situation." Alex's head spun. Was it Mike's partner? Another person Lauren had betrayed? He couldn't wrap his head around the idea. Barrett slid a USB drive across the desk. "This contains recordings of conversations between Lauren and Mike. Listen to them when you're ready. You'll find the answers you're looking for, but be prepared. They won't be easy to hear." Alex pocketed the drive, his hand trembling. "What about Mike?" "That's the part you need to be concerned about," Barrett said gravely. "Mike isn't just a man having an affair with your wife. He's got a record, fraud, coercion, and worse. I suspect he's using Lauren for more than companionship." Alex's heart pounded. "What do you mean?" Barrett opened another file, showing a series of financial statements. Lauren's bank accounts have small but regular withdrawals, amounts she probably wouldn't notice. Mike has a history of targeting women and draining their resources. If he's done this before, he'll do it again. Alex clenched his fists. He didn't just want to expose Lauren's infidelity, he wanted to protect her even if it hurt. "What do I do now?" Barrett handed him a detailed plan outlining surveillance schedules, legal options, and strategies for confrontation. "You can take this in 2 directions, expose everything and force accountability, or use it as leverage to remove Mike from your lives quietly. The choice is yours." As Alex left the office, the USB drive felt like a ticking bomb in his pocket. The rain outside was relentless, soaking through his jacket as he walked to his car. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about Lauren anymore. Something darker loomed in the background, and Alex wasn't sure if he was ready for what came next. The USB drive sat heavy in Alex Clayton's hand as he stared at his laptop screen. The folder on the drive, ominously labeled Project Shadow, contained hours of recordings and photos that Barrett had gathered. 4 days, Alex avoided opening it, dreading the confirmation of what he already knew. But tonight, under the oppressive silence of his empty house, he plugged it in. The first audio file hit him like a freight train. Lauren's voice, soft and playful, called Mike's name. "I can't keep doing this," she said, but there was no conviction in her tone. "You don't have to. Just leave him," Mike replied smoothly. He's a joke, Lorne. You deserve better. You deserve me. Alex's stomach churned as he listened to Mike mock him. That idiot doesn't even suspect a thing. Do you know how pathetic that is? Lauren laughed. A sound Alex had once loved but now felt like a knife twisting in his chest. The photos were worse. Lauren leaning against Mike's car, her hand tracing his chest. The two of them in Alex's favorite cafe, their heads close together, her face lit up with the same smile that used to be just for Alex. By the time Alex reached the end of the files, he was numb. He closed the laptop and sat in silence, the weight of humiliation and rage pressing on him. The next morning, he marched back to Barrett's office, his fury barely contained. I want him gone, Alex growled, slamming the USB drive onto Barrett's desk. Barrett raised an eyebrow, unshaken by Alex's intensity. You're not ready to face him, he said matter-of-factly. What's that supposed to mean? Alex snapped. Barrett leaned back in his chair. Mike's not just a cheater, he's a manipulator. Men like him don't just walk away. If you confront him unprepared, he'll destroy you, legally, financially, or worse. So what do you suggest? Barrett didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened a drawer and pulled out a business card. Ernie Taylor. He's a coach, combat training, situational awareness, and strategy. You'll need him if you want to make it out of this intact. Ernie's gym was tucked away in an industrial part of town, the smell of sweat and determination hanging heavy in the air. Ernie himself was an imposing figure, a former Marine with a shaved head and tattoos snaking up his arms. He looked Alex up and down, clearly unimpressed. Barrett sent you? Ernie asked, his voice gruff. Alex nodded. Ernie smirked. You don't look like much, but neither did I once. Let's see what you've got. The first session was brutal. Ernie didn't hold back, throwing Alex into grueling drills that left him gasping for air. This isn't about strength, Ernie barked. It's about control. If you lose your head, you lose the fight. Over the next weeks, Alex transformed. He spent hours every day with Ernie, learning how to throw a punch, how to block, and how to stay calm under pressure. He learned about leverage, about turning an opponent's strength against them. You're not just training for a physical fight, Ernie explained one day as Alex collapsed onto the mat, drenched in sweat. This is about taking back control of your life. Mike's been in your head, but now you're in his. Barrett, meanwhile, worked behind the scenes. He dug deeper into Mike's past, uncovering more than Alex could have imagined. Mike had a trail of broken relationships and ruined finances stretching back years. He'd charmed women, bled them dry, and left them to pick up the pieces. We need to use this, Barrett told Alex one evening. He's a predator, and predators rely on secrecy. Expose him and he'll crumble. Alex felt a flicker of hope. For the first time, he saw a way out, not just to confront Mike but to end his reign of manipulation. The confrontation was set for a Friday night. Barrett had arranged for Mike to meet Lauren at a hotel under the guise of a romantic getaway. Alex, Barrett, and Ernie waited nearby, ready to strike. As Mike and Lauren checked in, Alex's heart raced. He'd seen enough of their betrayal to fuel a lifetime of anger, but being here, seeing it unfold in real time, was almost too much. In the hotel bar, Barrett handed Alex a folder. When you're ready, show him this. It's everything. Photos, bank records, testimonies from his past victims. It's your weapon. Use it wisely. When the moment came, Alex walked into the bar where Mike sat, a drink in hand. For a split second, Mike looked surprised, but his expression quickly shifted to one of smug amusement. Alex, Mike said, leaning back in his chair. Didn't expect to see you here. Alex slammed the folder onto the table. You thought you could keep this up forever? You thought I wouldn't find out? Mike's eyes flicked to the folder, his smirk faltering. You've been playing games for years, Alex continued, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. But it ends here. Mike opened the folder, his face darkening as he flipped through the evidence. For the first time, Alex saw fear in his eyes. What do you want? Mike asked, his bravado gone. I want you out of her life, and mine. Permanently. Before Mike could respond, Ernie appeared behind Alex, a silent but imposing presence. Barrett stood nearby, his phone in hand, ready to call the authorities if things went south. "You've got 24 hours to disappear," Alex said. "If you don't, this goes public. Your scams, your lies, all of it." Mike hesitated, his eyes darting between Alex, Ernie, and Barrett. Finally, he nodded. "Fine. You win." As Mike slunk away, Alex felt an overwhelming wave of relief. For the first time in months, he felt in control. But as he left the hotel that night, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The fight might be over, but the scars would take much longer to heal. The gym was silent, save for the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Alex Clayton stood in the center of the mat, fists clenched tightly, knuckles wrapped in tape that now felt like a second skin after weeks of grueling training. Across from him, Mike smirked, his arrogance palpable. The man who had stolen his wife, mocked him, and tried to take everything from him was now standing right here, daring him to fight. Alex's heart thundered in his chest. He could still hear Ernie's voice from the training sessions. "Stay calm. Don't let anger cloud your judgment. This is about control, not just strength." But it was hard to stay calm with Mike's sneering face taunting him. Mike took a step forward, bouncing on the balls of his feet. "So this is it, huh?" he said mockingly. "All this talk, all this drama, and you think you can take me? Pathetic." Alex didn't respond. Instead, he took a deep breath, keeping his stance steady, waiting. Mike's grin widened as he lunged forward, throwing a wild punch aimed directly at Alex's face. Alex dodged, the air brushing past his cheek, and retaliated with a sharp jab to Mike's ribs. The punch landed with a satisfying thud, causing Mike to grunt in surprise. "Oh, you've been practicing," Mike sneered, stepping back and rubbing his side. "But you're still out of your league." The two men circled each other, tension crackling in the air. Mike came at Alex again, this time faster, swinging punches with reckless aggression. Alex blocked one, ducked another, and countered with a quick uppercut that snapped Mike's head back. Blood spattered from Mike's nose, and he stumbled, his cocky demeanor faltering for the first time. The sight of Mike bleeding ignited a fire in Alex. Weeks of humiliation, betrayal, and frustration poured into his strikes. He moved with precision, every punch and kick calculated, every movement disciplined. But Mike wasn't going down easily. Recovering quickly, he threw a low kick that caught Alex's shin, sending a jolt of pain up his leg. Alex staggered, and Mike seized the opportunity, landing a punch that split Alex's lip. Alex tasted blood but didn't falter. He steadied himself, remembering Ernie's words, "Pain is temporary. Focus on the fight." When Mike charged again, Alex sidestepped, grabbing Mike's arm and twisting it behind his back. Mike roared in pain, but he managed to slam his elbow into Alex's ribs, forcing Alex to release the hold. The fight grew more brutal. Mike, realizing Alex was no pushover, began fighting dirty. At one point, he feigned a stumble and grabbed a small weight from the rack. He swung it wildly, aiming for Alex's head, but Alex ducked just in time. The weight crashed to the floor, the sound echoing through the gym. "You're a coward," Alex spat, anger bubbling to the surface. Mike laughed darkly, his face smeared with blood. "All's fair, isn't it? You should have known better than to step into the ring with me." But Alex was done letting Mike dictate the terms. The next time Mike lunged, Alex used the momentum against him. Grabbing Mike's arm, he delivered a powerful knee to his stomach, causing Mike to double over. Alex didn't let up. He followed with a series of punches, each one landing with devastating accuracy, jabs to the ribs, hooks to the jaw, and finally, a solid right hook that sent Mike crashing to the floor. Mike groaned, struggling to rise, but Alex wasn't finished. As Mike crawled to his knees, Alex grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the gym wall. Mike's head lolled, his confidence shattered, his eyes wide with fear. "You think you can take everything from me?" Alex growled, his voice raw with emotion. "You thought I'd just let you get away with it?" Mike tried to respond, but Alex didn't give him the chance. He pulled back his fist and delivered one final blow, a devastating punch to Mike's jaw that knocked him out cold. Mike crumpled to the floor, motionless except for the shallow rise and fall of his chest. Alex stood over him, breathing heavily, his hands trembling from adrenaline. Blood dripped from his split lip, and his body ached from the fight, but he felt an overwhelming sense of triumph. For the first time in months, he was the one in control. From the edge of the gym, Ernie watched silently, arms crossed. "You did what you needed to do," he said gruffly, stepping forward. "But remember, this isn't just about winning the fight. It's about taking back your life." Barrett entered moments later, phone in hand. "An ambulance is on its way," he said, glancing at Mike's limp body. "Let him explain this mess himself." "It's over, Alex." Alex nodded, the weight of the fight and the past few months beginning to settle over him. As he walked out of the gym, the cool night air hit his face, mixing with the taste of blood on his tongue. His body was battered, his knuckles raw, but he felt a peace he hadn't known in a long time. The fight was over. Mike was defeated. And for the first time, Alex felt like he could finally move forward. Alex Clayton sat in his quiet apartment, the world outside feeling distant and muted. The events of the past month had left him battered and numb. Mike's humiliating defeat at the gym should have felt like closure, but instead, it had opened a new chapter of unease. Barrett's warnings about Mike's unpredictability lingered in Alex's mind. He hadn't expected silence from the man who had wreaked havoc on his life. The envelope arrived without warning. Thick, cream-colored paper, addressed in perfect handwriting, sat ominously on Alex's kitchen table. He hesitated before opening it. Inside was a single note: "You've won, Alex, but even in defeat, I will not fade away. I'll leave this world on my terms." Attached was a photograph, a haunting image of a ceremonial setup, a katana, neatly arranged candles, and a bottle of sake. Alex's stomach churned. He rushed to Barrett, who examined the photo with a grim expression. "This is a suicide ritual." "He's not bluffing," Barrett said. "Mike wants to end things in a way that leaves a permanent mark on everyone involved." Alex felt a cold dread creep over him. He wanted to believe it was another of Mike's manipulative games, but deep down he knew the truth. 3 days later, the police called. Mike's body had been found in a hotel room rented under a false name. He had carried out the ritual to perfection. The scene was grotesque in its precision. The katana was bloodied, the candles burned to their ends, and a half-empty bottle of sake sat next to a folded letter. The note, addressed to Alex and Lauren, was chilling in its calm tone. "Alex, you've proven yourself stronger than I thought. Lauren, you were my greatest passion and my ultimate downfall. This world has no place for me anymore." When the news reached Lauren, she unraveled. Living in a small apartment after Alex had forced her out, she had already been drowning in guilt and shame. She spent her days drinking, barely eating, and isolating herself from everyone. Barrett, who had been keeping tabs on her at Alex's request, informed him of her deteriorating state. "She's spiraling fast," Barrett said bluntly. Alex didn't respond. A part of him wanted to reach out, to confront her again, but another part, one still raw with betrayal, felt no sympathy. He thought he could leave her to her own choices, but he was wrong. A week after Mike's death, Alex received another call. This time it was Barrett. "Lauren's gone," he said flatly. "She overdosed last night. Left a note for you." The words hit Alex like a freight train. Despite everything she had done, he hadn't expected this. At Barrett's office, Alex read the shaky, handwritten note Lauren had left behind. "Alex, I can't live with what I've done. Mike and I destroyed everything, and I don't deserve forgiveness. I hope one day you find peace, even if I never will." Alex stared at the paper for what felt like hours. He didn't cry, but an unbearable heaviness settled over him. Lauren's betrayal had shattered him, but her death felt like the final, tragic twist in a nightmare he couldn't wake from. The press caught wind of both deaths, turning the story into a media frenzy. The headlines were sensational: "Love triangle ends in tragedy, ritual suicide shocks community." Alex became an unwilling focal point of the narrative, his life dissected by strangers. Barrett did his best to shield Alex from the worst of it, leveraging his connections to keep Alex's name out of the more salacious stories. Through it all, Alex struggled to process the weight of what had happened. He sold the house he and Lauren had shared, packed up what little remained of their life together, and moved far away. The silence in his new home was overwhelming, but it gave him space to begin rebuilding. Sitting on the porch one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Alex thought about everything: Lauren's laughter, Mike's taunts, the life he had envisioned, and the chaos that had destroyed it. Their deaths haunted him, but he resolved not to let their choices define his future. Alex knew the scars would never fully heal, but as he took a deep breath of the cool evening air, he felt a glimmer of hope. He was still here, still standing, and that was enough to begin again. Alex Clayton woke up to the sound of birds outside his new apartment. The small, sunlit space was a far cry from the home he had shared with Lauren, but that was the point. He needed somewhere to start over, somewhere that didn't carry the weight of betrayal and tragedy. The past few months had left scars, both visible and unseen, but Alex had resolved to leave them behind and rebuild himself from the ground up. His first step was focusing on his physical health. The weeks he'd spent training with Ernie had ignited something in him, a sense of discipline and control he hadn't felt in years. He joined a new gym in his neighborhood, where the staff didn't know his history and didn't look at him with pity or curiosity. At first, it was just about working out, but over time, he began to see it as therapy. Each drop of sweat, each mile on the treadmill, and each weight lifted was a step away from the person he had been. One day, as he was finishing his routine, a woman approached him. She introduced herself as Rachel, a personal trainer at the gym. Her confidence and energy were magnetic, and Alex found himself drawn to her. They started talking casually after workouts, their conversations ranging from fitness to books to favorite movies. For the first time since everything had fallen apart, Alex felt a flicker of excitement, the possibility of something new. But moving on wasn't easy. One evening, Alex received a call from an unknown number. He hesitated before answering, only to hear the voice of Lauren's mother on the other end. She was crying, her words jumbled and desperate. "Alex, I don't understand how everything went so wrong. I feel like I failed her. I failed you." The call shook Alex. He didn't know what to say, how to comfort her when he was still struggling with his own pain. He offered polite reassurances and hung up, but the conversation lingered in his mind for days. It reminded him that grief wasn't linear and that the wounds from Lauren and Mike's choices extended far beyond just him. Determined not to let the past consume him, Alex dove into self-improvement. He signed up for a series of seminars on personal growth, focusing on resilience and emotional intelligence. One of the workshops, titled Reclaiming Your Story, pushed him to confront his feelings head-on. During one exercise, participants were asked to write letters to the people who had hurt them. Alex hesitated at first, but then the words poured out of him, raw, unfiltered emotions addressed to Lauren and Mike. When he finished, he didn't feel closure, but he did feel lighter. The exercise had forced him to acknowledge his pain, rather than bury it under layers of anger and distraction. It was a step forward, no matter how small. As Alex continued to grow, his connection with Rachel deepened. She wasn't like Lauren. She was direct, empathetic, and unafraid to call him out when he started retreating into old patterns. One evening, after a long dinner where they'd laughed more than Alex thought was possible, Rachel took his hand. "You don't have to be perfect, Alex," she said softly. "You just have to keep trying." Rachel's words stuck with him. They reminded him that progress wasn't about erasing the past but learning to live alongside it. Encouraged by her support, Alex decided to pursue something he'd always dreamed of: writing. He began working on a memoir, channeling his experiences into words that were as cathartic as they were painful. The process was grueling at times, forcing him to relive moments he'd rather forget, but it also helped him make sense of everything that had happened. As the weeks turned into months, Alex started to notice changes in himself. He was no longer the man who had walked into Barrett's office, broken and desperate. He was stronger, more self-assured, and most importantly, at peace with the idea that life wouldn't always be fair or easy. Barrett remained a distant but supportive figure, checking in occasionally to offer advice or just share a drink. Ernie, ever gruff, still pushed Alex in the gym, reminding him that growth was a lifelong commitment. One day, Alex received a package in the mail. Inside was a handwritten letter from one of Mike's past victims, someone Barrett had helped track down during the investigation. She thanked Alex for standing up to Mike, for exposing him and stopping his cycle of manipulation. The letter brought tears to Alex's eyes. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there were opportunities to create ripples of change. By the time the anniversary of Lauren's death rolled around, Alex felt ready to face it. He visited her grave, standing in the quiet of the cemetery with a single flower in hand. He didn't speak, didn't try to reconcile what she had done with the person he had loved. Instead, he simply stood there, letting the moment wash over him before walking away. In his new apartment, surrounded by books, photos of his parents, and a manuscript in progress, Alex finally felt like he was living for himself. He still had bad days, moments when the weight of the past pressed down on him, but they no longer defined him. Rachel became a steady presence in his life, not a replacement for what he'd lost but a partner in the life he was building. For Alex Clayton, the journey wasn't about forgetting. It was about learning to carry the weight of his experiences without letting them crush him. And as he sat on his balcony one evening, watching the sun set over the city, he realized he was finally free. The past had shaped him, but it no longer owned him.